Hello, I'm Edmund Bloxam. This is my video interview for Rad Schools. Um, I taught EFL in Taiwan from 2011 to 2020, um, latterly writing syllabus materials, multimedia syllabus materials. Um, and so I've had quite a strong educational background. Um, I brought this forward to my piano teaching from 2020. I was in Britain. I didn't do a lot of teaching in that year for obvious reasons. Um, but I started teaching piano soon after that, alongside making audiobooks. Um, in terms of unique things that maybe it's not unique, but I encourage my piano students to listen to music as much as possible, to remind them that's why they're bothering. One of the things I've noticed about teaching piano, the biggest hindrance is students worry too much. So I try to get them to relax as much as possible. Often a student can figure out when they've made a mistake. They don't really need a teacher to stand over them with a ruler and hit their hand every time they make a mistake, figuratively, of course. They can usually figure out themselves. The things that put them off are worrying about when that happens. One of the principles I had in Taiwan was allowing you to make mistakes. Make as many mistakes as you need, just talk. That was one of the main principles of teaching English. Um, Allow yourself to make mistakes. That's how you fix it later. The same is true of playing the piano. You're allowed to play that wrong note. You'll just figure it out next time round. Like I said, the student will usually figure it out. So, um, getting a student to relax and enjoy what they're doing, and so listening to music is a uh, way of reminding them why they're bothering. That's what they're playing the piano not to tick boxes to get grades. They're playing the piano to make music, and that's ultimately what will get them the grades. If you remember that you're trying to make some music, um, that's what will get you the grades in the first place. Um, One of the philosophies I also took from teaching in Taiwan was flexibility in lessons. So one of the things you wanted me to talk about was goals and objectives um, of each particular lesson. I don't have very strong goals and objectives for each particular lesson because I'll adapt to the student's mood. So in terms of wider goals, I'll establish that at the beginning. What do you want to learn and why do you want to learn it? Most students want to learn grades, which sort of makes my lesson planning a bit easier because that's the focus. I'm seeing a student today, and she says she wants to do grades, but that's not really what she wants to do. She wants to accompany choirs. So I said, "Well, I can teach you how to accompany choirs, and we can take the focus off the grades if you want." So the goals will differ depending on the student. Um, and in terms of individual lessons, that will depend on the student's mood. So I'll start with a basic pattern and then essentially improvise. That's how I taught English in Taiwan, was improvisatory. I found that if I planned something particularly elaborate and then it goes wrong, then you've got nothing because you spent all that time planning something elaborate and complicated. And of course, in any lesson, which includes the piano, if something's going wrong, you stop doing it and you do something else. So you have to be adaptable. So there's a basic format that I have, but I would adjust to mood. In particular, keeping the student engaged and interested. This is true for adults, but it's particularly true for children. If they're looking a bit bored, then you stop doing the thing that they're looking a bit bored over, and you do the other. Usually, that's things like scales and exercises. But you do a bit of that. One of the principles I like to have is making jokes. So I often joke about scales. Personally, I prefer exercises anyway. Um, so in terms of what I call the boring stuff, I focus more on exercises. I like canon. That's a good basis. That's what made me a better uh, player of the piano was learning canon. My fingers got stronger, and when my fingers got stronger, my piano playing got better. So um, exercises and scales not as important as the making of the music, which comes back to the listening. Why are you bothering in the first place? You're bothering in the first place so that you can make music. Verily, one of the objectives I would have with every student is to increase the number of pieces that they can play. Ideally, what I want them to be able to do is sit down at home and mess about playing music for fun. And the only way to do that is if you're not particularly high level, you can't sight read, then you have to learn pieces. But if you make them quite simple pieces, so one thing I like to do is always have the student learning something at a level lower than their highest level, so that they can just have the stuff to play. So, I mean, I make this quite explicit to students. If a student is doing grade two, I'll buy them a grade one level book, and so on. Grade three, I'll buy them a grade two level book, or set of pieces, whatever, so that they can have quick wins as well. I remember when I was in university, I spent an entire year learning a single piece, and it was very disheartening and made me not want to play the piano very much because every time I'd sit down at the piano and it felt like work because I was learning this, just doing the one thing that I had to learn rather than playing piano. And when I stopped doing that, when I started playing for a laugh, then it made the hard stuff easier to play. When I started playing for fun, it made the hard stuff easier to play. So, increasing the number of pieces that a student could play is important. Eventually, sight reading helps as well. I like to pick up random books. I've got some grade four and three books that I got from a charity shop, and sometimes I just sit down and play the pieces. Picked up a grade seven book. My sight reading is probably about grade five. The grades, so it went okay, but not great. Might actually learn the pieces. Grade seven syllabus of 1982. Um, so, overarching objectives and assessments. Assessments, you wanted to talk about assessments. What do I expect from each lesson? Not a lot. If you like, I have a low demand for each lesson based on what I just said about being flexible. It would be nice if you get a whole bunch of stuff done, and I would obviously aim to get a whole bunch of stuff done. Um, but if that doesn't happen, that's okay. The principal thing to remind them is to relax and not worry if they make a mistake. That seems to be the one thing that holds them back the most. So, in order to encourage them to be positive, a typical lesson would start with the best piece, essentially the piece that they need to practice the least, the finished piece. Just make some music in front of me. So that the principle of that, even if the piece is basically finished, I don't have a lot to say about it because it's more or less ready. Generally start with that, or I'll ask them what they want to start with. What do you want to play first? If they want to get the scales out of the way first or the hard piece, I'd probably encourage them. If they don't know, they usually don't have that strong an opinion, so I'll just say, play best piece or play something else entirely if you want. Um, because I want them to play music as the main objective, my warm-up exercises, I put them in the middle I don't actually put them at the beginning because I like to open with making a piece of music. So they'll play the piece first. The warm-up activities, I like to split up what the student's doing. They're not going to just keep playing all the pieces. We're not going to go through all the scales in order. You alternate the piece with an activity. So if you like, the warm-up activities are internal uh, internal sections. What warm-up activities, improvisations. If a student has a particular opinion about like you do something, so I let them. If they start messing about after a piece, I let them. It means that they're exploring, which is good. They're not just playing the notes that they should play. They're exploring the sounds of the piano. So I let them, but also encourage them to do it. Um, on occasion, if the student is confident enough, I'll get them to do things like playing two different scales at once, like C major and G major at the same time. Not horrifyingly complicated because it's mostly white notes, but you know, encourages concentration. I've had some luck with simple duets as well. Uh, Often a problem with that is the students who are less confident will just feel more pressure. So I have to adapt to the student. But if the students particularly likes making noises on the piano slash playing music, I will um, play duets with them. Really simple stuff that they can sight read, so they don't have to learn it. It's essentially just making music. They're not going to learn an awful lot. Well, they might in terms of coordination, but um, the idea is to make some music. So exercises, I mentioned the Hanon, I would differentiate an exercise and a piece of music. So a scale and an exercise is not music. It's the stuff that makes your music better. I often use a tennis analogy because I read Infinite Jest, which is one of the longest novels ever written and has an awful lot of stuff about playing tennis. So, and essentially, you in order to play tennis well, you mechanically do like the serve. You serve over and over and over and over again. Even if your serve is great, you just keep serving till your arm hurts. I wouldn't quite go that far because we're not top level collegiate athletes, but essentially that principle of just there's being mechanical and then there's playing. So when the actual tennis match starts, you start improvising and being creative and playing and using that technique that you've hammered in. Again, you have to do that. You have to find a student who's willing to embrace that. If they find that boring, you emphasize that less. I mean, you have to do it a bit, but you can do it more for the students who can handle it. Um, and verily, that's also true of certain sections of pieces. If there's the hard bit, the hard bar, you get them to do it over and over and over and over again, really slowly. So you treat things like that mechanically, and when you sort of put the phrase together or the line together or whatever, it becomes music again. So differentiate between exercise and music. Different learning styles. I think I have well, most of the students, I'm just trying to get them to have more confidence. So um, the vast majority of students just too scared to play. So it's sort of an extra challenge. Um, I think I have a neurodivergent student currently. As a doctor, I wouldn't want to diagnose them too heavily, but it seems that they're a little bit autistic. I watched some videos on teaching autistic children, and yeah, he's on the spectrum, I would think. So I certainly used the things that I saw from this video, and it helped. So because he's sort of energetic, the first thing he'll do, walk into my house without to sit down and start playing. Um, so he'll just go for it, which is kind of good. But if you want to get on with something, he can be extremely easily distracted. So quick fire activity. Don't stop. With other students, you can sort of take a moment to breathe. With this guy, you can't stop. You just have to sort of keep firing, and you have to keep rotating the activities. So rotating the activities is important, like I said before, but you have to rotate them faster. So you have to have more activities ready to go beforehand in the hopper, if you like, and you feed them in to keep him occupied. He is. It helps that he's he has perfect pitch, so he might be. He's extremely good at playing the piano. I've never seen someone pick this stuff up, but it's all by ear. So it so happens that my piano is tuned a semitone lower because it's old. So sometimes you have to do that. And I said, "Play me a C major scale," and he played me on the keys. It looked like a B major scale. And I was like, So I have to remind myself to go play a C major scale based on what you can see on the keys. So I think actually it's almost a bit of a technical because he now has to think about what his hand is doing. He can't use his ear to play a scale. He has to use his brain. So I actually think just get. I don't think it's a problem that my piano is tuned. I think it's actually a help. But yeah, so he plays it entirely by ear, which means that it's a bit slow going when you start a new piece of music. When it lands, he can just go away. Once it's in his ear, he can do it. Well, one thing that impressed me most, so he has a great sense of harmony as well. So he'll when he improvises and starts, he'll improvise a lot. And as I said, I'll let that go. He'll start improvising on chords. Not quite jazzy, but he's still sort of playing with chords. As you know, it is jazzy. Yeah, he's just sort of playing with chords in crazy ways and just flowing from one chord to another. And I just sort of let him most of the time. I say positive things, encourage that kind of musicality. So I thought he might have a problem with atonal sections. There's a piece in the grade two syllabus that starts off tonal and ends extremely atonal. But no, he got it. Once the sound was in his head, he got it. So and again, excuse me, adapting, adapting to his mood. So I have to, like I said, I have a hopper of activities rather than a specific list that I have to do in a particular order, and I move them around. Well, one thing he can do because he has perfect pitch is I can play it. I can play him a section of music, and he said, "Don't look at the piano," and he plays it to me. So that's another one of those sort of, if you like, a bit of a warm up activity that most students wouldn't be able to do. Encourage positive reinforcement. That's one thing that I would also take from teaching. The first thing you say after the students played you something is something positive, even if what they did was absolutely terrible. You say something positive and you find it. With the adults, you can you can actually tell them that you're doing this, and you go, "If I say to you that was a good spirit, that means you haven't done anything right," and they laugh. But that only works with the adults. Yeah, I do like making jokes as well. Just That's important because you have to enjoy themselves. One problem I had teaching children in Taiwan is being boring. This is true for adults as well. If you're boring, it doesn't work. So if you like, I spend quite a lot of time not thinking about the specifics and how to make things fun and make them laugh, so that they enjoy themselves. They don't think that going to a piano lesson is horrible, boring, and effort and all of that stuff. For this teaching demonstration, I do have an actual person to demonstrate with. This is a friend of mine. She's a beginner. We're going to try to teach her an arpeggio. Okay, so could you tell me the first seven letters of the alphabet?
A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Okay, yeah. So you notice the pattern on the piano repeats itself. So you can see the black notes and the white notes. It repeats itself. Those first seven letters of the alphabet. Um, this is an A here. If that's an A and that's an A and that's an A, can you tell me where C is? Yes. Can you play all the C's on the piano? Good. Okay. Uh, if C is one, what is five? Hmm. Play the one and the five together, the C and the G, C and the G. Okay. That's the one and the five, two most important notes in every scale. Remember that. So I want you to play the 1, 3, and the 5 together. Good. So there's the three pitches of your arpeggio scale. So I'll show you what we're going to do. You'll notice that I'm playing the same three pitches of the pattern. So notice I used the first, second, and third fingers of my hand, and you twist to reach there, and then you stop at the C with your fifth and come back down again. So try that. Start on the C. That's a B. Yep, good. C. Yep. E. Stop there. With the little finger on the C. Don't worry, go back down again. One. Almost. It's okay. Get down to here. Good. That's very, very close. Very close. We're looking at. Good. Very good. We're looking at these three notes here. And we finish on that. So you had a good technique with your hand there. Yeah, use your right hand. 1, 2, 3. One more time. Yeah, that's the notes. That's good. Now try doing the big arpeggio scale. Keep going. Finish on the little finger on the C. Keep down again. G. Down to the E. And finish on the C. That's okay. Very good. That was an improvement from last time. You were twisting at the right time. So I would do that a couple more times. I think she was getting closer, but that was just a demonstration. Um, so if this is the student engagement, I'll ask the student now. Um, what do you think about my communication and lesson?
I think it's very clear what you're talking, and also you demonstrate, use your hand to demonstrate, and then I can clearly see what you're doing. Although I'm not very, it's like my very first couple.
Yeah,
That's
clear. Yeah, so that's clear.
yeah.
So was there anything I could have done better?
Mm, I mean, if I'm struggle, you
Mm,
can give more instructions.
okay. So you would have preferred instruction rather than letting you make mistakes.
Yes.
So, me again in a different shirt. So clearly, this is taking longer than I was expecting. Um, for some reason, the microphone on my computer didn't pick up the notes that she was playing. Not entirely sure why, but I think to do as a demonstration, you can probably guess when she made a mistake. Um, I would probably skipped a couple of steps there. I went quite fast. I would have made that, but I was trying to make it fairly short. Um, you'd also perhaps notice that it's my technique to let students figure it out for themselves, to encourage them to see if they can figure it out. So you only give them half of the answer, if you like, and if they really can't figure it, you give them the whole answer. So in fact, that's what the Kusheng is her name. That's what Kusheng didn't like so much. In which case, feedback like that, I would integrate into what I was doing. If she wants more demos, then I would add more demos. That would be a sort of a lesson one situation where you figure out the things the student likes and the things that the student doesn't like. So you refine based on student preference. My preference, as I said, is letting them figure out the answer. So you give them and you sort of you explain half a concept to them and see if they can figure it out. So an example like that might be we did half of it there. I said if that's an A, where's the C? Play every C on the piano. And I've started to notice the pattern, so I've left out a small amount of information. I might then also say, play every G on the piano and see if they can figure it out. Or other similar example. So anyway, I think that covers all the ground in the interview. Thank you for listening. Look forward to hearing back from you.